welcome to another episode of the Acid Trash Jamboree, where we take a look at offbeat and obscure music and films. Today marks the beginning of yet another mini-series that I hope to return to every now and again. This time looking at whatever assorted bits of noise, industrial and power electronics music that I can dredge up from the darkest recesses of the collection. In this video I'll be discussing a couple of things that I got recently, plus an album I've had kicking about for a few years. Okay, so we start with this monster double CD compilation put out in 2022 by Phage tapes, comprising of material by Black Sand Desert, an alias of Grey Holger, of Chondritic Sound fame, and also of the Noise Extra podcast. This release collects tracks originally from 7 individual 3-inch and business card CDRs, mostly released between 2002 and 2005. There's also one here from 2020, all of which have been remastered by Grant Richardson. And yeah, this is great. For some reason, I've never delved too far into Grey's stuff, and now I'm pretty much kicking myself for leaving it for so long. Anyway, the set opens with 3 shorter pieces of fast-paced, ever-shifting noise with harsh, static blasts giving way to some pleasing, spacey and almost psychedelic textures. Merzbau's classic 90s period is an obvious touch point here. Though this is no mere Akita worship, to my ears at least, Grey certainly has the talent to make something of equal quality, which is no mean feat. The rest of the set mostly consists of extended pieces, each of around 20 minutes duration. It turns out that these are as hyper-complex and interesting as the shorter ones, full of very satisfying textures, plenty of dynamic shifts, and a really beautiful attention to detail, always keeping you guessing as to what might happen next. I'd pretty much be here all day if I was to go on about each and every one of these tracks, but Vanishment stands out as a particular high point. This one's dominated by foundation rattling, low, flatulent tones. So yeah, if you want some intelligently constructed, creative and diverse noise that isn't just some boring autopilot static blasting for 2 hours, then this comes with the highest recommendation. It's probably especially handy for the few that managed to grab all the original CDRs back in the day, only to find that they don't work anymore 20 years later. Controlled Bleeding is another long-running and prolific act that, shamefully, I've only scratched the surface with. This is a welcome 2021 CD reissue, again from Phage tapes of Death in the Cameroon, an early cassette album from 1985. The first of the 3 pieces here, Skin Evening, starts off like a bit like the dark, freeform space music of, say, early Klaus Schulze or Cluster, before moving into kind of eerie tape warp spookery. Then it explodes into life with rhythmic metallic banging and deranged, ultra fuzzed out vocals. The whole thing soon descends into abject chaos for the remainder. Sounding not unlike a field recording from Hell's Own Lunatic Asylum. Harsh stuff for sure, but still with that nice, crusty, lo-fi cassette warmth to it that I love. The next piece, Paris Lights, follows a similar pattern at first, opening with more cosmic spaciness, leading into a spasm of ultra-distorted kind of mutant techno. It soon calms down again, though, into spacious, atmospheric drones and chants, which are occasionally punctuated by industrial jackhammering and what sounds like someone revving a motorbike somewhere off in the distance. Just when you thought the album couldn't get any more mixed up and exploratory, along comes the concluding piece, Ribs in Scavenger's Sack, which clocks in at a whopping 31 minutes. This one opens up with more of that beat-driven, industrialized proto-techno or synth-punk, bringing to mind the more accessible end of Throbbing Gristle or Cabaret Voltaire stuff, or even Suicide. After that, all bets are off. The track's spiralling off in a frankly dizzying amount of directions, from almost pretty and melodic, Terry Riley style minimalism 1 minute, to harsh, violent noise blasting the next, interspersed with sections of more of that floaty space whispering, cosmic synth squiggles, and who knows what else. So yeah, an absolutely monstrous ending to a truly impressive album. As much as I like to hear relentless, harsh noise insanity every now and again, truth be told, I can only really listen to so much of it before my ears pretty much start to shut off. So I often find myself preferring stuff like this from the old guard of noisemakers, who'd routinely factor in influences from 70s electronic avant-garde music and fuse it with this burgeoning, more aggressive 80s sensibility. So yeah, we've got another instant favourite here. We finish on a rather obscure joint release from the Freak Animal and Arkisto labels, John Halola's Owl project, and the collection Tapes 97 to 99. I was intrigued by this, mainly because I seem to have a bit of a thing for albums with roosters and chickens on the cover. Don't ask, but yeah, it turns out that this is another very varied and engaging smorgasbord of noises. I don't know much about Mr. Halola, so pardon my ignorance here, but one review of this album that I did manage to find online mentioned that apparently these recordings were made before the fella even knew anything at all about noise music. Well, if that's true, these are mighty impressive sonic assemblages indeed. Al's gear setup supposedly consisted of nothing but detuned radios and some old boom boxes onto which he collaged these sounds. Sorted chirps and squeals, super blown out low-end speaker abuse, sorted metallic scrapings, disembodied voices, and on the last piece in particular, some impressively synthesizer-esque drones. So yeah, it just goes to show that you don't always need the fanciest gear to make a diverse and satisfying racket in the end. Overall, this is another one that comes highly recommended if you're after an album that isn't just some dude blaring the same frequency at you for an eternity. It's just a shame then that there doesn't seem to be anything else out there to hear by this chap, and if there was, I'd snap it up in a heartbeat. So that's it for this episode. Hopefully it's been of interest. Like I say, I'll be returning to this topic intermittently, as well as talking about and showing all sorts of other weird and wonderful CDs, tapes, maybe even a bit of vinyl, covering all genres of fringe and experimental music. So yeah, feel free to subscribe if that sounds your thing, and I'll see you again soon on the next edition of the Acid Trash Jamboree.